So let's dive deep. Let's do it. The only thing I know is that I don't know anything. Are you really ready to look at yourself? You are seen, you are heard, and you are loved. I believe art has the ability to transform this planet.
The Deep Dive with Adam Roa.
What's up, deep divers? Thank you for joining me for another episode. My name is Adam Roa. I am here today with Mr. Robert Kandell, and I was just celebrating how I was off to a really good start because I pronounced your name properly, and then I had to do it again.
Impressive.
And it's more impressive the second time?
More impressive the second time.
There you go.
Because then your mind will start to...
I didn't even have to acknowledge it either.
Right.
Like, we could have just been super smooth, but I just want to, we celebrate the little
wins. This is
wins.
about being real, man.
Celebrate the little wins.
Yeah, exactly.
So we were talking before we started recording. We were
Yes.
talking about how I knew you, which was as the guy who started Om Meditation.
Yes.
Right, which is one taste, correct?
Yes.
And it was told to me, and so maybe you can actually describe it. How it was told to me is where men hold space for women to be worshipped and receive orgasm through meditative experience of connection without it needing to get sexual from the man. Like, that's how it was kind of told to me. Is that accurate, or
It's about 17% accurate.
17%.
17% accurate.
Perfect.
You had like one or two things that actually worked. The rest was...
Tell me how you would describe it.
Well, to your point, that version of it is true. Like, as all levels. So like the opposite of one truth is another truth. I totally think some people saw that perspective. From my perspective, it was two people coming together, removing commerce from sexuality, having a practice where one person would be stroked, the other person would be the stroker. So usually it was men stroking women. So a woman would lay on her back, open her legs. The man would take the most dexterous part of his body, the index finger, and stroke the most sensitive part of a woman's body, the upper left-hand quadrant of her clitoris, for 15 minutes. Now it might look
upper
like...
left hand, just so I can take this into the bedroom. Upper left hand, when I'm facing it, upper left hand, or from her upper left hand?
What do you think?
I think it's her upper left hand.
Good, yeah.
Yeah, I've had some time in the bedroom.
Yeah, you're like...
Yeah, I think that's where
it was rewritten from a woman's perspective.
Beautiful.
Which is interesting. There's so many like connections to society, but society thinks man doing something to woman, so the frame of reference would be a man. But we redesigned it. We reconfigured something that's been around for 40 years. I can talk about that, but 40 years for a woman's perspective, so she could have orgasm the way her body was naturally designed to have it. Not the male-based orgasm, a lot of sensation, rise, hit a peak, explode, drop, and then fall asleep. From a woman's perspective, which was an up and down, peaks and valleys, rising and falling kind of orgasm.
Like it's a ride.
It's a ride, yeah.
Which, as I've gotten into Tantra, is amazing because as a man, we can ride that with them.
Absolutely,
Yeah, which is so much fun. It's a good ride.
So the practice was to teach men, instead of their commerce-based climax, rushing to some goal to achieve some notch on your belt to feel good about being a man sort of thing.
Feels very westernized in like Western philosophy.
Yeah, so the Om practice was about two people coming together, both people feeling sensation, riding the wave of orgasm, not from a male perspective, though that could be fun too, but from a female-based orgasm, so both people could feel the sensation in their body.
Yeah, and if the man knows that it's not going to be sex for him,
right,
and it's just here, there's a higher likelihood that he'll actually just attune into that energetic. Because once that woman is stroking me, I can get lost in my own thing and not in their energetic, right? And so that sounds beautiful. It sounds like a very clear... like, I understand why that became really popular. And now what we were talking about, though, was that it became very cultish. It became a cult, maybe by definition, and you stepped away in 2014.
Yes.
And I was really curious about, as something that's an 8-figure business, as something that you are the head of the snake, if you will, the head of the horse, what was the event that caused you to say, I can't do this anymore?
Some people call it a cult, some people call it a commune, some people call it an organization, some call it a business. Again, it's all different perspectives of how it is, right?
Yeah.
To me, it was an adventure, and it was the adventure of a lifetime. Because I started off, in my practice, really to go to the beginning of my awakening or my spiritual journey, I describe myself as numb and dumb. I had like no awareness of women. I was very smart intellectually.
Place this for me in time. When was this?
1999.
Okay.
So I took my first workshop in San Francisco in March of 1999.
What type of workshop?
It was called the Pleasure Course by a guy named Erwan Devan.
Okay.
Really cool guy. You should meet someday. And so I'll tell you the awakening moment of my story was I'm in the workshop. I'm a yuppie. I'm with my first wife, Carol. I was curious. And then I was doing an introduction, and I thought I nailed the introduction, and thought like everyone would clap, and the teacher would say, "Come up and teach with me." And then he said, and everyone's got this like Buddhist he's like, he looks like you a little bit, handsome guy, like really solid. And he goes, "Do you know your wife's crying?" And she was sitting right here, right in like next to me, and I had no awareness
that she was crying.
She was crying because the first time she felt, because I was so misogynistic and so chauvinistic, the first time she had the opportunity to evoke her emotions. And I had two choices. One, stand up, go back to the status quo. Two, to stay and in the burn of it. And I decided to stay, and that was the adventure of a lifetime.
Well, you just hammered onto what I think is the key ingredient in a spiritual awakening. Not just maybe the moment, but to accept the journey is the willingness to sit in the fire.
Right.
That above all else, if people say, I am regularly in medicine ceremonies, ayahuasca or iboga or whatever, and it's in the moments where I go up for that third cup when I'm like on my hands and knees and I don't go, but the message is go get another cup, and I go up and do it. It's in those moments I say, this is the if there was a moment that I could say, this is the thing that is why, this is the why behind why you're able to create or just become the person that you're becoming. Is those moments. And the moment you just described feels like one of those moments. Is you have a choice point. The moment you have that awareness to make that choice, which one do you choose? And so kudos to you. That was 99, so 20 years. Let's celebrate. Yeah, there's 20 years later.
Yeah, it's coming
2
up.
decades.
Yeah, do you know Joseph Campbell, Here with 1,000 Faces? It's the call for adventure. And you answer the call, you refuse the call.
And so you've been on this hero's journey.
I have been on this hero's journey for 20 years.
And 5 years ago, it got to a point where you said, I'm misaligned, I'm out of alignment, I'm like, why did you step away?
In 2012. So the business didn't make money for the first 8 years. We were in the red.
Really?
Yeah.
How's it being funded then?
My house and this venture capitalist who came in.
That's how I feel.
Exactly, yeah. So basically, I walked into the world with $1 million and ended up at one point in 2012 with deciding, should I get the burrito with the extra chicken? Because that'll keep me full for the rest of the day, or should I not get the extra chicken? That
avocado, that guacamole at Chipotle, that's how you
like
know, are you in abundance mindset or not?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I've been, that was one point. And, we were running a service-based organization, and it was really intent on how we can provide a service of our technology to move from point A to point B. But we were in the red. And we were leveraging this venture capitalist money, and he wanted his money back, and drama. And Nicole, my co-founder, the face of One Taste, went for a walk with a good friend of mine, Ken Blackman, another great guy you should talk to. And they came back and said, okay, we're switching everything around. And we etch-a-sketched everything. We turned into a sales organization. So immediately we went from 2 locations to 9 locations.
What were you selling?
We were selling workshops, coaching programs, private coaching.
And before that, it was a donation-based thing, or?
Everything was selling, but it wasn't the focus.
Got it. So you switched focus.
We switched focus. We went basically 180 degrees. And it was the right decision from a business point of view. And from my own personal point of view, like I was happy when we first had it. I was the CFO. I was the one managing all the bills and handling all the payroll and all those things. And we just made this decision. And so we went from 2 locations to 9 locations. We started our coaching program, started doing mastery programs, just blew it up.
In a very traditional sales model, probably,
Yes,
right? Like
right.
you could see it in the Tony Robbins or the things, like there's the flow of sales, the
Yes.
funnel, that is very traditional, which is funny because I've been in that, for myself, we did the first 6-7 months of The Art of Choosing Love without there's no offering. Like as of this moment right now, there's nothing anyone can buy really from The Art of Choosing Love. And that changes Thursday as I launch my first video course ever.
Mazel tov.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And I've been in that question is how do I not make sales the focus?
Right.
How do we stay so true to ourselves and the offerings overflow from that, right? And it sounds like it became a sales focus, which worked from a business standpoint,
Right.
but on a soul level was not aligned for you.
For me, I wasn't teaching, I taught men's workshops. My favorite thing. There's communication in men's workshops. But in the men's workshop, I wasn't thinking about where I can get there from point A to point B. I was thinking what was going to be the upsell after the class.
Got it. So it actually went into your mindset too.
Oh, it wasn't just in my mind. It was, during lunch, it was a Tony Robbins thing. It's like everything was about the upsell. Now, for the record, I didn't have a better way to keep this organization running. We were going to go down if it wasn't for this shift. It just, my soul didn't seem to align. I didn't want to teach for the upsell. I didn't want to be thinking about sales all the time. I was also teaching nonstop. With 9 cities, I was, in a city, teaching, doing a meeting, jumping on a plane, going to another city, teaching, doing a meeting, and I basically traveled nonstop for 2 years. Moved to London with 1 day notice.
Do you have a family at that time?
I did not have a family. I mean, One Taste was the family. There was, we were,
you were
part and parcel.
You were the head of the cult.
I
right?
was head of that.
Yeah. So it was all your family. In
Exactly.
A way. Yeah. Amazing.
Exactly.
And I imagine and did it come with some sense of fame and notoriety? Were you a rock star within the organization?
Within the organization, I was the guy.
Yeah.
I was, the dad, I was the top guy. And
Yeah.
Nicole was significantly more out in front of the curtain than I was.
Yeah.
I was the man behind the curtain, pulling all the levers, and there was respect. And I ran teams, and I was basically at the focal point of every aspect of the business. So I was well received, well revered. I didn't have to worry about, attention, plenty of man attention and women attention.
And so what was the moment you knew it was time to leave?
I got moved from Los Angeles to San Francisco. It was my 3rd move in about 8 months. Basically, you would just move from city to city to run a different city depending on personnel. And so I had a life in Los Angeles. I had, friends, I had a yoga practice. I think I was seeing someone. And then the call comes, we're going to move you to San Francisco, tomorrow. So I'm in this room and it's by myself. And it was one of those dark night of the soul moments where I just got the words that had never come to me before. And the words were, I don't want to spend the rest of my life doing this.
Wow.
One moment, 1 second of one moment. And I was like, okay, I better listen to this. And I didn't sleep that night.
Well, okay, so for people listening here, because so many people have those moments and ignore them.
Yes.
And similarly, when you have the moment of, I can sit, my wife is crying, I can sit here and be in that fire, there's a choice point. So you have that awareness that comes in, I don't want to be doing this for the rest of my life. What do you think it is that caused you to go, I'm going to honor this, I'm going to listen to this?
Well, there was another piece of the puzzle as I noticed my health started to decline.
Okay.
I was living on Tums. I was really bad acid reflux. I was throwing up once or twice a week easily. So, and it got worse over time. And I was also overweight. I was unhappy. It was a physical component, but it was also this loud voice that basically said, this is not how you want to spend the rest of your life. I had planned to spend the rest of my life doing this. This was my entire future. Everything was in that moment. And then that one moment of listening, was the right choice.
Beautiful. And so that began a year-long process to move out of the organization.
Right.
And what's the shift been in the organization since you left?
Since I left, apparently, I had to disconnect myself from it because it was such part of my DNA. So I defriended everyone on Facebook and start, really interacting with them.
The malicious unfriend. Wait, why can't I see his posts?
Yeah, they stopped inviting me to things.
Got it.
It was a separation. And no one talked about me. So people still come up to me like, I never knew there was a guy at One Taste. I never knew there was, because I was person non grata. And since then, there was a time where it got more and more intense, where they got a little more crazy, did some crazy things. There's stories about initiations and witches and priests, and they had really expensive programs. And Nicole, the founder, quit last year. And then there's been some blowback in terms of negative press, Bloomberg.
It's like a federal investigation.
There's an FBI something connected to him. I don't know what the details are, just what Bloomberg says.
So what's interesting, like I'm from a personal standpoint thinking, because I obviously project what we're creating in the infancy stages of a new business that has all these different, and when I hear like you stepped away and then things changed and then Nicole stepped away and there's these things, at a certain point, does the organization, I don't know if this is a must, like if this is a empirical, but does it get to a point where the tail's wagging the dog? Does it get to a point where even though you may be the face or someone else, it's rolling now downhill too fast to be stopped in a way?
Well, the organization was based on Nicole's desire. She was the power force. She's amazing. She's an amazing human being. Powerful, electric, magnetic, charismatic, just like power. And she just, inspired thousands and thousands of people to expand themselves. And I just want to say, I believe One Taste did significantly more great and amazing things for people. And we did some things that were off the mark, things that were hurtful, things that harm people. It's the balance. But it was based on her attention, her energy, and then when it shifted, the whole organization would shift along with it. So it was really her desire, and I played the role of, the supporter. I was the man to implement her dreams, and it was the ride of a lifetime. Pushed me and built me skills that I'm still grateful for today. And at some point, I stopped wanting to go where the train was going, and I got off the train.
And so you have such, from a business standpoint, being this supporter and holding the masculine, let's say, framework and structure of the business. And I don't mean that in a man way, so anyone who might misinterpret that. I mean that from just masculine energy.
Sure.
To the actual content of what was being done, being a man, most regularly the stroker, and for women in this, you have clearly so much value from the male perspective, deeply ingrained in the interactions with women, which at this day and age is, we have a global renegotiation between men and women, or the masculine and feminine, happening on this planet.
Indeed.
And that's why I'm going to mention your book here, Unhidden, a book for men and those confused by them, which, I saw Connor Beaton, founder of Man Talks, on the back here, and then I just perused briefly through it, and I love, by the way, that it's not like a textbook. It's actually, I could read that, which is exciting.
That's a story in itself.
To take the amount of knowledge and wisdom and experience that you have, and be able to put it into something that's easily digestible to someone, is a skill in and of itself. And so acknowledgement for that, for the book. Congratulations on the book, everyone. If this resonates with you, I encourage you to grab it. And I would love to know what caused, what led to this? What is the message behind Unhidden right now?
I've always been a communication junkie. I love communication. I learned communication through Nicole and the experience of running a huge organization. And then I just saw the deeper, and there's so much to communication besides talking. There's the meta messages and the energy and the intonation and all these things that people don't understand about communication.
That most of it's nonverbal.
Most of it's
93% or something?
There's all these different numbers,
different
usually above 80, between 85 and
95.
95 is the number. But really what it comes down to is that people, I'll just say for men for a second, men don't feel right or believe they're worthy to show what's on the inside. We have such deep fear of abandonment, ridicule, disapproval, I mean, the basic core belief, I joke, but not so much, is we're all afraid to die alone under a bridge. There's this fear of us not being accepted or being thrown away by the tribe.
Wow. Can I ask a favor?
Sure.
Because we're going to go down this path, and this is something I'm such a stickler with language. Can we speak about it in past tense? So men have had. We have had this fear of whatever. For me, it's very supportive for me and my framework of this. This is a thing that we've had, but we no longer need to choose to continue carrying forward, as opposed to men have, as in this present tense thing. I'm just curious if you'd be open to engaging with me in that way. I know I'll speak in that way, but
Okay.
I just...
To ask a clarification on your request.
Yeah.
Do you think this no longer exists, or are you painting a new future, a future for people?
I recognize that the language we use to very strongly influence the reality that we're living.
Okay.
And so my ability to speak about, like, I was sexually abused at the age of 5.
Got it.
I have been experiencing so much wounding around it. Speaking about it in that way is very different than say I'm wounded.
Got it.
I'm healing. I have been in the process of healing. It helps me, and it's something that I speak about regularly in terms of my content that I put out. And so anyway, it's just...
I'll play.
Yeah, let's play the game.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Love it.
Men
See,
have
and
had-
this is how men can communicate and come to agreements. And if he had said no, that's fine too. Yeah, beautiful.
So men have had a lot of social conditioning. You know, the Mask You Live In, the documentary. So many great books out there. Fire in the Belly, Sam Keane classic, David Data, No More Mr. Nice Guy, Dr. Robert Glover. There's all these great books that describe, that all of us know, is that men have been culturally conditioned to hide their emotions. And it's a double trap. Because they feel things and they have not been allowed to speak about it. And so what they do is they hide it and they wear masks. They have wear masks. And in the wearing of masks, they have not had the deep intimacy they want with other people.
Yeah, and thank you so much for entertaining this with me. I love that you're doing it, and it just says so much about you and just the student mind that you still have in a way.
Totally.
Just play with it. So what is interesting to me is I feel like as men and women have this in their own way, but speaking specifically to men, we have been receiving mixed signals.
Certainly.
Right? For most of our lives, we have received the message of boys don't cry.
Yes.
Man up.
Yep.
Take it like a man.
Yep.
All of those sorts of statements that live in the collective.
A denial of the feminine, if you want to group it.
Beautiful, yeah. And I'll have you elaborate that in a moment. And simultaneously, we've been receiving so many messages from our women specifically, saying like show up vulnerably, show me your emotions, show me your heart. And so to have gone through life receiving the amount of advertising, especially because advertising, I think, is maybe one of the primary proponents or propellers of these stigmas.
Yes.
To then have what we actually desire, because the advertising is telling us be this way to get a woman, then the woman shows up in our experience and the woman's telling us to be a completely different way. We go, wait, isn't that how I got you in the, wait, what do I do? And those mixed messages are confusing.
And women have said, I want you to be vulnerable, then I want you to be a man that grabs me and takes care of things. And I want you to be the protector, and I want you to be the provider, but only at the right times. And so there's a mass confusion all genders have felt in who to relate in this very quickly evolving 21st century. And if you look at the statistics, there's been significant influences that have even sped up the process. So when I look at the history of it, some scholars say the patriarchy has been around for 6,000 years.
With what civilization? Like, what was the
first terminology was called fatherhood, and then it switched into the patriarchy. It's really when we moved from out of an agrarian civilization is when the patriarchy really took hold, and also when there was land ownership and passing.
Is that correlate with agriculture?
Yes.
It does? Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. I mean, it's. I'm not an expert on this. I don't want to act like an expert.
But when we settled as
Right.
opposed to the nomadic hunter-gatherer. Got it. Okay.
So the patriarchy was created by all genders. It was created by the concept of this makes sense. And then 6,000 years later, there's been really a lot of positive things about the patriarchy and then a lot of negative things about the patriarchy. So when you look at the timeline, the women's suffrage movement started in 1848, Seneca Falls, with a declaration to say, let's have women right to vote. Women just got the right to vote in the US in 1920. And then women couldn't have bank accounts or own houses until the 50s and 60s. And then what happened in the 60s and 70s is the schooling system switched to start to empower girls. I say girls, women under 18, to empower girls to succeed in school, especially around STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And what we've seen in just the last 50 years, compared to 6,000, has been this major change. I'll give you some statistics.
Please, I love statistics.
60 or 70, in 1960s or 70s, 66% of college entry was men. Okay. Now, it's flipped.
66% is female.
Women.
Wow.
Right? They're dominating the school system. Why
do you think that is?
Well, one, because they created these programs for girls to succeed, to turn them from homemakers and secretaries, the madman era, into options and possibilities. And women are just like awesome and driven to get to that. And they actually started to switch the school system to help girls and actually impede boys.
Really?
There's a book called The War Against Boys. Susanna Hoff Summers wrote, that's really interesting in terms of the minute changes, less gym class, more language, really just turning it to find the equality. They created all these programs for girls on how to succeed, but not the same programs for boys. Now I'm 100% supporter of the equality.
I'm pretty sure you hate women. That's
you really getting that? Yeah.
No, what's the point? I say this in jest, but this is a difficult topic at times to discuss without there being immediate triggers. Like male empowerment.
Right.
In 2019, I have seen incredible blowback. I've experienced blowback in my own experience for speaking about this topic.
Right.
Because there is I'm not going to say it's the majority, but there is a movement. There is a facet of the Me Too feminine rising movement that in many ways is wanting revenge. Like it seems like there's an anger, there's a vilification that's happening. And to really find the answers that we all may be wanting and desiring, the homeostasis of love and acceptance that we have for each other, to find that requires entering into it, desiring balance, not to flip it. Like this, when you say 66% in the other way, go, how did we go in that other direction? How can we find more of a balance for both, the male and female?
What my research has shown, and my belief system, is that men are heading in the wrong direction. So whereas women are hungry to move in and to find to schooling and equality, into the job market, into the CEO positions, it's just 35 of the top 500 CEOs, or 36 at this point, are women, but it's up from like 12. Like a decade ago. Those numbers are a little loose in my head, just for the record. But you look at the pay grade. So the pay grade was 64 cents in 1980, all women versus men. Now in 2012, a millennial white woman is 93 cents to a man's dollar.
Yes, and so that people are aware of this, because it often gets misconstrued when we talk about the glass ceiling, right?
Yes.
The how much a woman earns for the similar position in the dollar, which those statistics, and I'm not the expert on this, but I do know that those statistics are often misconstrued because of it doesn't take into account unpaid leave for maternity.
Right.
It doesn't take into account more dangerous jobs that are higher paying that just women don't seem to be a part of the oil jobs and things like that.
Right.
And so I used to hear that and be like, whoa, that's really messed up. And that number, the 93 cents to the dollar, is more indicative of actually the society we live in now, where when you factor in those other aspects to it, the pay equality has really evened out significantly.
And those manufacturing jobs, they've lost 6 million since 2008. 6 million since 2000. 6 million manufacturing jobs have disappeared, mostly run by men.
Yeah, so the pay equality has really dramatically increased or evened out. And then also, you were talking about those manufacturing jobs due to automation and shifts. They've lost 6 million?
6 million.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what we're seeing is, when I said men are heading in the wrong direction, to me, when I look at the playing field, I think it's the best time to be a man. Like, we're living in a world where women are sexually and socially and energetically moving up in empowerment and belief, and they're becoming financially partners, and there's all these things that can make this the best party. But that the entitlement you keep mentioning is totally true. Michael Kimmel, an author around these dynamics, calls it aggrieved entitlement.
Say that again?
Aggrieved entitlement.
Aggrieved. What does aggrieved mean?
Aggrievement, like aggravated.
Got it. Aggrieved entitlement. I haven't heard aggrieved. Aggrieved entitlement.
So it's not that that person's taking my job. It's that woman is taking my job. That minority is taking my job. It's my job, but they're taking something because we have the 6,000 years of the patriarchy, because we have all this history, because we have all these scripts handed to us by our great-grandfathers and our grandfathers and our fathers. We have this belief system, and the world's changing so quickly, it's time for us to throw away the scripts, see what's happening in reality, and then adapt and step up. Like learning a new level of a video game or learning how to hit the fastball. It could be the best party, but instead we're in the whiny, giving up.
We get to evolve our consciousness, to use that super trendy, like let's get
Exactly.
real world example of what that means. We get to step up and choose new ways of behaving and new ways of living that are more aligned with where we're going, because what we're doing now is not leading us in the direction that ideally, let's put it this way, I don't want to go in the direction that so much of society currently seems to be headed.
Yes.
And that's why you write the book and I have this podcast and all the different things, which is why we do what we do. And so I'm so grateful that you wrote the book Unhidden to, solve all of these problems for everyone.
Solve. I don't know if I would say solve, at least confront. Let's say confront.
What is in your mind, what is the turning point? How do we turn this aircraft carrier in the direction that you would like to see?
I think we'll always have the bell curve, right? So we'll have guys on one end of the spectrum. There's nothing can happen. They're always going to stay the same. No matter what evidence you have, they're not moving. Then you have this end of the spectrum, gentlemen like us and our colleagues are like, oh my God, we're the seekers and the readers and the researchers and the learners, and we're like so curious. And then there's the middle. And right now, my belief system is just make it attractive for the middle to come in and say, oh, that's interesting. I originally wanted that thing to be a textbook. I wanted it to be like this esoteric pain in the ass that people were reading, like, I hate this guy.
It's like, the new Tao.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to, and then I got feedback from trusted people. It's like, this is too complicated, or this doesn't make sense, and you have to change the flow. My 83,000 word version 5 is now 46,000 version 10.
As someone who's written a book and scripts, to do that much cutting is impressive. You could have done a volume 2.
Well, but really what happened is I just got it simple. I wanted to write it conversationally. I wanted to be like I was just you and me having a conversation while you're reading it. I tell many of my own embarrassing stories. I put myself right there in the student role alongside, and then just give 20 years of work of feedback from great teachers and great experiences and women telling me the truth about how they want to be talked to, how they want to be touched, how they want to be noticed. That's in the book. And so
what would you say is the piece? Is there a piece? Because I have my perspectives on this, but I would love to hear where that dark night of the soul moment you had in the hotel room where that voice comes in, what is that for the collective? What?
I think, well, a lot of what we talked about, but really when it comes down to men, is to learn the power of self-approval. We are external approval seeking junkies, external validation junkies. We're constantly looking outside of ourselves to know that we're a good man. And that drives us to chase women that we think will give us approval, chase the job, chase the bank account, chase the power. We're constantly looking externally for us to know that we're doing it right in the world. Father approval, mother approval, all these approvals. And so the one message I like to tell men is to learn to build your self-esteem. Self-esteem is built upon esteemable acts. The little things you do inside your integrity, me staying in that class in the fire, me deciding to leave one taste at the height of being a king of this organization. Those little moments where the voice comes and says, that's not in my own integrity, to switch and to find your integrity. Because once you fall in love with yourself, and most people, most men I know, most women, but most men I know don't even like themselves, let alone love themselves.
So your message really is you are who you've been looking for.
Exactly.
Which is so funny because I have a poem that went viral that's called That You Are Who You've Been Looking For. And the virality of that piece, it was shared on Goalcast and 24 million views in the first 24 hours. It broke a bunch of their company kind of records. Shows me that the message of self-love, the actual message of self-love is not just needed, but desired. Yeah. It is wanted.
Yeah.
Because, and that's what the Art of Choosing Love, that show spawned from, was people saying, I've heard I'm supposed to love myself, but I never knew how.
Right.
And that's so true. Everyone knows, everyone's heard it. Love yourself. It all starts with loving yourself. But when you talk to that just average person that you pull out of Oklahoma, Alabama, Utah, whatever, you just pull some random person out of somewhere,
right,
and you say, love yourself more, they're going to say, what does that mean? How? How do I do that? And so as you're saying that, yes, men have been conditioned to look to our achievements, look to our muscles, look to our bank account as the thing that has given us our worth.
Yes.
What are your tips? What are your self-love practical, applicable tips to love yourself more?
Yeah. Well, in my book, there's exercises and there's concepts. And so one of the basic ones I recommend is, the first thing is, when the pain of change is less than the pain of staying the same, people change. So if you're happy in your status quo, this is not for you. But if there's that little itch, if that little voice in the back of your head, if that little hunger, you're not in the job you want, you're not in the relationship you want, you're not in the shape you're in, if there's that little thing inside of you, then say, I'm going to confront the thing I want. I'm not going to go back to Netflix or porn or gambling or video games. I'm not going to numb out. I'm just going to sit in the dire confrontation, that painful, uncomfortable confrontation of who I am and who I want to be. Then in the confrontation, what I recommend next is to investigate. Again, this is all in the book, in my framework. You investigate. Okay, you're watching too much porn and you know it's affecting you. There's so much information. There's amazing TED Talks out there. There's a website, Your Brain on Porn. There's an amazing audiobook called The Butterfly Effect, which is all about the impact of free porn. Go out and research and find out what the impact is. Then, this is the most important, say you're going to make a change. Commit. Commit to saying, I'm ready to confront this. Then build a practice, find an accountability partner, find a friend, and then go do it for a short cycle of time, 28 days is usually what I recommend, make the change, and then diagnose, debrief, and then recommit.
Yeah, that's a really great framework for people to do. What I've noticed and a lot is that so many people don't actually have integrity of their word with themselves.
Oh, no way.
So it's, I'm gonna quit smoking.
Right.
I'm gonna stop eating McDonald's. I'm gonna whatever. And they've said so many times I'm going to stop this or I'm going to start this, and they don't follow through, that they legitimately on an unconscious level don't trust themselves.
Right.
So the moment they've said I'm going to change this, they've already broken it in their mind. And so the key piece that I reacted to was the accountability. That is why the life coaching industry, the personal development industry, and we've mentioned Tony Robbins during this podcast, like that's why it's such a massive booming business, is because people do want to shift. And I think people collectively, in my estimation, I'm seeing people recognize that something does get to shift. And that awakening in people right now, they're looking at how to funnel that, right? And we're looking at it through all the MAGA hat wearing people who are like, this is where things get to shift. We build the wall and we whatever. And then you have people who are shifting in. Let's go to the new age spiritual communities where they're saying, great, what we get to do is go into communal living and all these things, and they're all broke because they haven't figured out how to make that happen within society in a way that works. To take that emotional uprising and point it inward and say, great, I get to step into a greater version of who I want to be, irregardless of what the ads are telling me, irregardless of how I've been raised. Who I want to be gets to happen, and I could use support. And that support is available. That support is available through the books and the podcasts and all the different things, but it is a critical piece. And for men especially, as we have been told to embrace the lone wolf, and you can do it, and you're the underdog, and you don't need anyone else. I think stepping into an era of collaboration, communication, cooperation, and a willingness to ask for support, a willingness to be supported is huge.
Right. Mandatory. Yeah. And it does, if you don't have money to pay for a coach, join a men's group, find a meetup for men. If when in January 2016, I was feeling a little overweight. And so I put on Facebook, I'm going to do 30 days of hot yoga. And every day I would say 7 o'clock went to yoga, every day. By day 7, I was sick of it. And my friends were like, when are you going to yoga, Rob? And so there's simple ways to do it, but you have to put yourself out there. You have to be vulnerable. You have to ask for help. And for a lot of men, that's the first challenge. And I can tell you as another man, this is the message maybe I want to say too, as another man, it's my honor to hold another man accountable, to be asked that, for one brother to say to me, would you just check in with me once a day? Or can I text you once a day about my accomplishments? Or every time I want to slip on porn, can I text you? And I'm like, yes. It's such an honor for me to play inside that role.
One of our most popular episodes was I Found True Bromance in Vegas. And it was showing how we, as we travel, how we interact and how we hold each other to that and the highest vision of who I know you want to be.
Right.
So in the moments, if you are acting in a way that isn't in alignment with what you've told me you want to step into, I get to hold you accountable to that in a loving way and in an unflinching way. And how would you, because I see this as being maybe a foundational component, which is how do men show up for other men? How do, like you said, it's an honor for you to hold a man accountable to who he wants to be. I feel the exact same way. It is an honor for me to hold space for my brothers to step into the versions of themselves that they've expressed to me that they want to be, and the version of them that I can see that wants to blossom. And I'd be curious, do you have any thoughts on that? How we can show up for other men in this process where there is so much confusing information being thrown our way?
With the one word that popped in my head was the concept of approval. We live in an approval deficit society where everything you do is wrong. You talked about the marketing. Marketing is all designed to send you messages of all things you're not right about. You're too tall, you're too short, your hair is too long, your hair is too short, you smell bad, you work too much, you work too little, et cetera, et cetera. We're constantly barraged with these messages.
In order to sell us something that will fix the problem. Yeah.
Right, and we have been acculturated to that, to believe we're something wrong. When I work with, as a coach, when I work as a friend, as my friend, with my wife, I start off with the concept of approval, that I'm approving of you as a person, 100%. Now, it doesn't mean I'm not going to say you're acting like an asshole, or when you said that, it hurt my feelings. But it's akin to when you have a computer with a virus, you don't tend to throw out the computer. You just try to eradicate the virus. And so when you approve, I'm approving you as a person. And I think if you worked on this one thing, your communication, then I think you could get closer to your goals. That's how I want to show up for my clients, for men, for my wife, for my stepkids, and for myself.
And your key word there was your goals.
Right.
Because so often you see men project onto other men how to show up.
Yep.
I've had men project onto me, get to show up with more fire, as because that's the thing. Or you get to show up just more whatever. And instead of asking the question, like, what do you want? What are your goals?
Right.
And then I, through my lens, because I can only wear my lens,
Right.
will see you through my lens of who you want to be.
Yes.
And I think that's really foundational and important, is that we're not projecting onto other men how they should be.
Right.
And through our example, more than anything, through our example of who we are and how we navigate situations and being willing to be vulnerable, we give permission to other men to do the same.
Yep.
And I would love to, as we start to wind down here, I would love to give you the opportunity. So for men to show up for other men, boom, got it, right? Hold each other accountable, be willing to be honest and be vulnerable with each other in that, and everything else that you were speaking to. How do men show up for women? If there's like the one key takeaway that in your experience you would say this is a way that we get to show up for our women.
The hackneyed word is presence. That's the word, but I love and use. Show up with presence, and show up with so much self-love and self-belief. Don't tie your rightness with how happy she is. Show up with your own self-generating motor, and then say, I want to know who you are. I want to know everything. I want to know every little dark secret and corner in there. And I might have some response to it. I might have some feelings. I might get triggered. But even then, I'm going to say, oh, wow, that was a little triggering for me. Or I'm feeling some feelings. But then start the practice of revealing, to live unhidden with each other. Because that's what most men don't do for women.
Can I ask you a follow-up to that
Sure.
specifically? Because I've had men, coaches in the men's empowerment sphere, who believe that there are definitely things that are not meant for your women. There are aspects of you that you bring to your men, and in your men's circles, in your friends groups or whatever, that you keep that separate and do not bring to them. And so when you were speaking to, I want to know every nook and cranny, do you believe in, yes, every nook and cranny, or do you believe there are certain aspects of our thoughts or our whatever that we want to keep separate?
I think to their point, like I'll go to my therapist and run my charge or run my angst. I don't want to use my wife as my therapist, though she's brilliant at it. I don't want to depend on her for that. So I'll go to my men to evoke the feelings and work things out. I'll take 1,000 thoughts and distill it down to 2 and bring those to Morgan and say, like, I was in therapy, I started here, and then this is the nugget I figured out. And so I think there's a mix between the two, but in my viewpoint, there should be nothing taboo that you can't tell your partner. But I do think it's good to use others to work it out before. You don't want to vomit on your partners.
And I think just bringing it into masculine and feminine, right? What this means is, how do we show up as the masculine for the feminine? And one of the things that is powerful about masculine energy is that kind of linear, logical, focused approach.
Right.
And so when we're in the space of not having it and all the different emotions and thoughts, we're not actually in that energy, right? We're not in that. And so when we can use other men to help us corral this into a linear focused approach, then when we come back to our women, we can deliver those 2 pieces from the 1,000. And that's a very masculine way of doing it.
Right.
Yeah, and so we're showing up as the way that they can lean into.
Right. So there's that. In presence, there's a lot of, we touched on this somewhere in the middle, that a lot of pain and angst in women that I want my women friends and my partner to be able to off-gas on me. I know there's times I'm fighting with Morgan, she's my wife. I'm fighting with Morgan where I'm paying for her father's, her ex-boyfriend's crimes. I'm very sure of it. And I was me and I miscued. But I know that this is more pain that's very historical or really ancestral. And so I want to be the kind of man to say, okay, bring all of it. Rather than you having to hold it inside and not have a place for it, I want to have the presence and strength and intestinal fortitude that you can send everything through me and I can hold you.
Which means not taking it personally.
Not taking it personally.
And the way that we don't take it personally is to show up so fully self-assured that nothing you say is going to move my needle of like my knowing of my integrity.
Right.
And that integrity being built up, you spoke to this, on little moments of saying, I'm going to change this, and then following through. I'm going to be this person, and following through and seeing those step by step of building character.
Yes.
Yeah, so great. And so the last one then. So we got how men can show up for other men, how men can show up for our women. What would you say for women on how they can show up for us men?
I love Alison Armstrong. I don't know if you know her. I think she's the best in the business, personally. Mm-hmm. She says, women often look at men like they're hairy women. They're often thinking that, why isn't a guy acting like a woman? Mm-hmm. And so the most important thing for women is to see this is a man and he's different from you. Mm-hmm. And he has different needs and different culture and different. So curiosity. Mm-hmm. Just deep curiosity. Instead of projecting what you think he should be, get curious on why he's not. And hold space, because men are not taught that they're given permission to show their soft side or their frailty side. Mm-hmm. And when a woman says, I want to know all of you, when I want to see all your shadows, there's so much freedom, intimacy, and that's where the best sex comes from.
Safe containers.
Safe containers.
Safe containers all day, every day. The more safe containers we can create for each other in whatever ways, whatever dynamics, this is a safe container for us to express ideas, including, hey, can we talk past tense about, right? And because of the safe container, as opposed to if I just, like you were speaking on stage and I walked up to you, said, hey, can we it's not a safe container. Your receptivity to my idea in that moment is not the same as sitting here and doing it in that way. And from that example to like, a disagreement with your wife or my partner just saying, hey, can we create the space for us to both express and then communicate through that? And I think that's something that I am stepping more into, helping people know how to even creating those safe containers and speaking to that. I'm so great. I mean, we could talk forever. You seem like my kind of dude, in just we geek out on human consciousness and all this stuff. Yeah. So I appreciate you taking the time. Pleasure. I know you got this book. You want to let people know where they can find out more about you, everything you're doing, including the book.
Everything's at robertkandell.com, and if you want to just go to Amazon, you can search on Hidden. But all the links are at my podcast. The book, my workshops, and events is all at Robert Kandell.
And that's spelled Kandell.
Yes.
Kandell. Robert, it's been a real pleasure, man. Thank you so much for taking the deep dive with me. And for all of you deep divers, thank you for listening. I want to remind you that always, in all ways, you are seen, you are heard, and you are loved. Thank you so much for taking the deep dive with me today. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe on YouTube or iTunes and leave a review so that other people can know how much you enjoyed it and they can find it and they can expand themselves and start to spread the message of love far and wide. And if you want to go deeper with me, I encourage you to check out my YouTube show, The Art of Choosing Love, and the day-to-day activities that I'm sharing on Facebook and on Instagram. As always, in all ways, you are seen, you are heard, and you are loved.